Imagine standing in the heart of a city larger than any in Europe. Stone pyramids tower above you, their steps stained with offerings of blood. Priests in feathered headdresses chant to the gods. And on the Templo Mayor, the great temple, the drums thunder louder, louder as thousands of eyes watch in silence. This is Tenochtitlan, capital of Aztec Empire, a city of gold, glory, and gods that demanded sacrifice. But how did the Aztec rise from wandering nomads to masters of central Mexico? And how did an empire so powerful collapse almost overnight to a handful of foreign invaders? According to legend, the Aztec were once wanderers, the Mexica people searching for a home promised by their god Huitzilopochtli. They were told to settle where they saw an eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a serpent. For decades, they wandered scorned by neighbors, driven from fertile lands. But around 1325, on a swampy island in Lake Texcoco, they saw the omen, and there they began building their city, Tenochtitlan. At first, it was humbled, wooden huts and reed mats on marshy ground. But the Mexica were relentless. They drove stakes into the lake bed, built canals and causeways, and turned swamp into a metropolis. Within a century, Tenochtitlan would rival the greatest cities on earth. But how did a people with no beasts of burden, no iron tools, and no wheels build one of the most dazzling capitals in the history? By the early 1500s, Tenochtitlan was extraordinary, and nearly 250,000 people lived there, more than London, more than Paris. Causeways stretched across the lake, connecting the island to the mainland. Aqueducts carried fresh water. Canals crisscrossed neighborhoods where canoes glided like Venetian gondolas. The marketplace of Tlatelolco stunned Spanish chronicles. Tens of thousands gathered daily to trade coaco, jade, obsidian blades sharper than steel, tropical birds, and food enough to feed an empire. At its heart stood the Temple Mayor, twin pyramids dedicated to the rain god Tlaloc and the sun and war god Huitzilopochtli. Here, the Aztec honored their god with offerings and with blood. To the Aztec, the cosmos was fragile. The sun battled daily against darkness. The human life existed only because the gods had sacrificed themselves. In return, humans owed blood, the most precious gift of all. Sacrifice was not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was necessity. Without it, the sun might falter, the world could end. Captives taken in a war were marched up temple steps. Hearts were offered to these gods. Blood nourished the earth. To Europeans, it was honor. To the Aztec, it was survival. This devotion fueled their wars of expansion, the flower wars. Battles fought not just for territory, but for prisoners to feed the god. But this same obsession would blind the Aztec to the greatest danger they would ever face. By the late 1400s, the Aztec dominated central Mexico. They forged the Triple Alliances, Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, Tlacopan, crushing rivals and demanding tribes from hundreds of city-states. Food, textile, gold, feathers, gecko all flowed into Tenochtitlan. Warriors in jaguar skins and eagle costumes enforced Aztec rule. Their empire stretched from the Gulf to the Pacific, commanding millions of subjects. Yet, resentment smoldered. Many conquered people despised their Aztec overlords, seeing them not as protectors, but as oppressors. And when strangers arrived on the shore in 1519, the cracks in the empire widened into fractures. In 1519, Hernan Cortes landed with just over 500 soldiers. To the Aztec, they were unlike anything they had ever seen. Men in shining armors, horses, beasts of war unknown in the America, muskets, and cannons that thundered like the voice of gods. Some Aztecs saw them as invaders, others whispered they might be divine. For had not prophecy spoken of the return of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god who would come from the east? Montezuma too, the emperor, hesitated. Should he crush these strangers or welcome them as guests of destiny? His choice would shape the fate of an entire empire. Instead of war, Cortes marched into Tenochtitlan as a guest. Montezuma welcomed him, showering him with gifts of gold and hospitality. But the gifts only fed the Spaniards' greed. Meanwhile, resentment boiled. The Tlaxcalans, fierce rivals of the Aztec, allied with Cortes, bringing thousands of warriors. What had been a handful of Spaniards grew into an army of conquest. By 1520, tensions exploded. During a festival in Tenochtitlan, Spanish soldiers massacred unarmed nobles and priests. The city rose in fury. Stones rained down. Spears pierced the air. Cortes and his men fled across the causeways in what became known as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. Hundreds drowned in the lake, dragged down by the weight of stolen gold. The Aztec had driven out the invaders, but the war was not over. It was only beginning. In 1521, Cortes returned, stronger than ever. He built ships to control the lake. He brought thousands of indigenous allies who sought revenge against Aztec rule. And with them came the deadliest weapon of all, smallpox. The plague tore through Tenochtitlan. Families withered. Warriors fell before ever lifting a spear. Even Montezuma died, his people turning on him, uncertain if he had betrayed them or failed the gods. His successor, Cuauhtemoc, fought bravely. For 93 days, the Aztec resisted. The canals ran red, the air filled with smoke and screams. But the Spanish bombardment, starvation, and disease crushed the city. On August 13, 1521, Cuauhtemoc was captured. Tenochtitlan, once the jewel of the America, was reduced to rubble. The Spanish built Mexico City atop the ruins of Tenochtitlan. Temples were torn down, churches rose in its place. Yet the Aztec never truly vanished. Their language, Nahuatl, is still spoken by millions. Their myths echo in modern Mexico. Their calendars stone, their art, their food, chocolate, maize, chili remain part of daily life across the world. And the legend endures. A people who carved an empire from prophecy, who raised a city from a swamp, who defied God and men until their last breath. The Aztec rose from nothing to command one of the most dazzling empires in history. Their fall came swiftly, brutally, but their spirit lingers in language, in culture, and the stones buried beneath Mexico City. History never dies. It just echoes.